why is youth engagement so important? To begin, the youth brain is in an amazing stage of development where it has a heightened potential to change. This is called neuroplasticity. Experiences through meaningful engagement can then open up opportunities for tremendous growth and adaptability in a young person. At the same time, by age 15, a person's reasoning ability, or their logical thinking and problem-solving skills, is fully developed. This means that youth have insurmountable potential to contribute, which can be realized through opportunities for meaningful participation. In recognizing youth's ability to be agents of change in the community, there is a valuable opportunity to connect youth with those who hold decision-making power. When we do this, communities can better leverage innovative solutions. So let's take a look at what happens when youth are meaningfully engaged. Both youth and adults develop new skills and build their capacities as agents for change. Organizations and programs are more responsive to youth needs and wants. Networks are strengthened between youth and adults, and an increased sense of belonging for all ages in the community is fostered. Communities pave the way for innovative solutions to societal challenges. All in all, youth have something to contribute now, and this means changing the mindset from how can adults help youth to how can youth and adults help each other.
Nation building? Big word!
Pero Besh, huwag ma-intimidate.
Ang totoo, carry natin mga kabataan yan.
Pet malo kaya tayo.
Pero sometimes, the struggle is real talaga.
Kaya naman, sagot tayo dyan ng Philippine Youth Development Plan o PYDP.
Ito yung hopes and dreams ng gobyerno para sa ating mga kabataan.
Para by 2022, we're all productive citizens of the Philippines.
Oo, tayong lahat.
Mga kabataan, ages 15 to 30 years old,
Nag-aaral man, out-of-school youth, nagtatrabaho, pati na rin mga kabataang may specific needs.
so what does it all mean?
It means, lahat tayo natutulungan ng gobyerno to achieve our full potential.
We're healthy, educated, may trabaho o negosyo, at kahit huma-hashtag travel goals, may pakialam pa rin sa country.
Lahat ng ito para inspired tayo mga kabataan to do our part for inang bayan.
Dahil tayo mga kabataan, bilang susunod na mga leader, ay importante sa ating bansa.
So how do we do this? Una, healthy living. May access tayo sa sapat na medical attention, nakakapag-exercise, at may proper diet and nutrition.
Sexually responsible din tayo at informed sa risks.
Pati sa mental health, full support din para sa mga kabataan.
Lahat tayo may access sa quality education.
Kumpleto sa gamit ang bawat classroom at mahusay na ang lahat ng teachers.
So we can all be globally competitive.
After graduation, we nation building makipagsabayan anywhere in the world.
Sabi sa inyo pagdating sa pagbuo ng ating bayan o nation building, mahalaga tayong mga kabataan.
Kaya ang pagsasagawa ng PYDP, pagtulong yan sa ating mga kabataan.
Investment din ito sa ating national development.
So let's all get woke and participate
Para sabay-sabay natin ma-achieve,
ang ating national squad goals.
dahil tayong mga kabataan,
Ang tunay na pag-asa ng ating bayan.
All right. Good day, UP Open University, and to our listeners. This is Nasser Lazaro, and you're now tuned into Sustainable PH Radio. Better people, better Philippines. Our platform becomes more important during a crisis situation like the one we are still facing today. And following the outbreak of COVID 19. The Sustainable PH radio has a significant role to play in communicating and furthering the sustainable development goals in the country. And ultimately, the goal of community programs for youth is to authentically engage and empower vulnerable children for a better future. And while we enjoy the holiday break, join me again this time as we listen to our invited guest, who is an active youth leader and advocate as he participates in various SDG campaign globally. And presently, he acts as an envoy to the United Nations Development Programme, or to be specific, the UNDP Movers Program. We have now Lorenzo Sablay. Lorenzo, I'm so amazed with the advocacy you're currently engaged with, and thank you for having with us today.
Thank you so much, Nas, and the UP Open University and Sustainable PH Radio for having me. I know that December 25 has already passed, but still happy holidays and in advance, Happy New Year to everyone and our guests and our viewers.
Mhm. So, Lorenzo, learning from all your accomplishments, I knew that you started your advocacy since 2010 in dealing with climate action. What was the catalyst that made you decide to become an advocate?
Uh, well, honestly, even before the concept of the SDGs was introduced, and we still had, I think, the MDGs back then, I honestly didn't know what I was working and advocating for development for them. I started social civic volunteer work way back in high school when I got very immersed and passionate in volunteering and teaching children from a nearby slums area in our school during the weekends. But I wasn't also focused on like the bigger or deeper purpose of it yet, since back then I was very young and idealistic. I just really wanted to teach, make the children happy with our program and also make a mark in their lives through education. But when I went into college, I became more immersed in volunteer, social civic, and professional organization endeavors in my biology course and in my university. Also, in medical school, I saw firsthand the hardships and the difficulties that the marginalized and disadvantaged people and groups experience in terms of healthcare, receiving healthcare resources and services. And I was my eyes were open. There were many barriers to it that really affected their well being and quality of life. And this made me volunteer for medical and surgical missions and also be active in medical student organizations. But a major catalyst and push for me happened in the pandemic. In the early months of the pandemic, I was nearing the end of my medical studies. I was in the last 2 months or so, and I was studying and preparing for my final oral exam. The one last challenge in obtaining my medical degree. And during this time, the Philippine communities were put in lockdown, and the youth, either they were in school or at work, they were made to stay at home. And I have encountered news and complaints from young students and professionals that they were feeling tired, left out, and burned out from being told to stay at home, from not being listened to, from not receiving empathy. I've also heard stories of young Filipinos, even close to my community and my own home, whose mental health have been negatively affected. I've also encountered many stories and sharings of people suffering and being victims of false information about COVID-19 and other important aspects of their health. I've also read accounts of those afflicted by COVID-19 who cannot and do not have the capacity to receive care and intervention, even from the most basic care to the advanced critical and life-saving interventions. I've also repeatedly read and listened to the actual stories of our frontliners whose very rights, their security, their welfare were not being considered. And I was also alarmed by the plight of families, local communities whose daily needs were not being met by the assistance provided and whose daily sustenance is hanging by a thread. And this is worsened by the uncertainty of the COVID-19 response, the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the devastating calamities that plagued them later on. And from this, I thought um, there was no last straw, sadly. And it felt like a bunch of dynamite and grenades being piled up and one by one exploding until nothing was left. Nothing from my patience and understanding were left. And from this, I asked myself, what will happen to them? What will happen to us, to me? Paano na ang health, ang welfare, ang growth, ang empowerment natin, lalo na ng mga kabataang Pilipino. Hanggang dito na lang ba tayo dahil sa pandemya, COVID-19 pandemic? So I now arrive at a crossroads in my life. Do I simply ignore the issues and problems that I'm repeatedly encountering, seeing and hearing, and just focus completely on my studies, since these were the last months leading to my final oral exam, and these are crucial? Or do I step up, initiate something meaningful and impactful, and do
Right.
something to be able to help? And the biggest gap we wanted to fill was in healthcare information access, delivery, and dissemination, especially amongst the youth. Um, when the COVID-19 pandemic started, we were in the dark. Our information to help us combat the virus was limited. And as the pandemic went on and more aspects about the virus and the disease unfolded, various pieces of information became available. However, those information that was spreading was vulnerable to this distortion, becoming misinformation or disinformation, and along with
Definitely.
local beliefs or myths.
Mhm.
The ease of access and spread in social media channels, and lack of fundamental knowledge in fact checking. The concomitant infodemic happens now when an excessive amount of information that is typically unreliable spreads rapidly. It causes confusion and even panic or hysteria that can endanger the lives, especially of the youth, and make targeted solutions more difficult to achieve. This infodemic has been a big roadblock in efficient healthcare delivery, information access and dissemination, health seeking behavior, and compliance of the population. It creates further gaps and worsens the pandemic that we already have until now. In fact, for example, misinformation and disinformation are one of the main reasons why Filipinos were hesitant in the first parts of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. So, this, along with some gaps and inconsistencies in the rollout itself, led to a slow vaccination response. So, all of those, I think, I believe, were catalysts um, to me being an advocate and a youth leader.
That's really an eye opener. And you being involved into the medical field, I think those experiences has brought you and somehow address the needs that you are actually advocating for, especially for the youth. And just like what you've mentioned, the recent infodemic, right? But
Mhm.
I am also aware that being an envoy of the Movers Program, can you tell us more about it and what is your advocacy and what role does it play in this challenging time?
All right. So generally, my advocacy is for everyone, everywhere, to learn, appreciate, and act for the SDGs, and to be part of meaningful youth engagement. And I think the Movers program really embodies this. The root and the heart of the Movers program is in the SDGs. Specifically, I advocate for SDGs 1, no poverty, 3, good health and well-being, 4, quality education, 6, clean water and sanitation, 13 climate action, 14 life below water, 15 life on land, and 17 partnerships for the goals. And in these challenging times, I believe that our advocacy helps us to have a strong root. We need to have a strong root, a very strong sense of foundation, a cause or a calling, and a deeper sense of purpose translated into advocacy and realized into impactful action to guide us in our life and leadership journey, help us grow and develop, and of course, make our mark in this world for future generations. Having an advocacy, especially in these challenging times, also helps bring out the best in us in most ways, inspire others to become, sources of inspiration themselves for others, and in some way amplify our voices in action in a sort of a multiplier effect to bring about meaningful change that we truly need. And this is also what we do in Movers Program. When we do a workshop or training, we inspire the attendees to become movers themselves and conduct trainings in their own communities and networks so that they first of all spread the knowledge and awareness and of course inspire action in their own environments.
Right, right. And for the sake of our listener, let me just put it into context that the UNDP Movers Program, wherein Mr. Lorenzo Sablay is currently engaging with, it is a regional movement, right, of volunteers who develop SDG awareness. Also for the entrepreneurial mindset, especially now that we are in the 21st century skills, right? They conduct localized training, and which is one thing that the UPOU will try to look forward in collaborating with, especially at the grassroots level, right? So, Lorenzo, I'm actually curious. Moving forward requires that one take a step. Who serves as your inspiration in this endeavor?
That's a really great question, and I really looked into my life uh, in looking for an answer in this question. But my inspiration has always been, my parents. They're very selfless, service-oriented, and kind-hearted individuals, and they taught me good values and lessons in life to guide me, and they largely shaped who I am today. But overall, I am also inspired by every single young Filipino and Filipina and every youth around the world I cross paths with because um, I get to hear their stories, their leadership journey. I get to be inspired with what they've achieved, what they've overcame. I get to work with them and collaborate with them for meaningful change because they are also leaders in their own right. So I guess my source of inspiration, aside from my parents and family, are every youth leader that I meet in life.
Right, right. That's very amazing. And you are highly driven advocate. You are advocating for the youth as well as for the initiatives that you're currently working with. But how did you divide your time like for work, especially that you are in the medical field, and just like what you've said a while ago, you will undergo series of examination, whether it be oral or written, being in a healthcare industry. How did you actually
Yes.
divide your time for work, or should I say academics, life, and to these initiatives for the youth?
All right. So, hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, we can
Yes.
still
Okay.
hear you.
Um, for me, I believe that time is essential. However, it is relative. You choose to spend how much time you spend on one thing or on each task. But honestly, good time management is still a skill I am working very hard to improve. Um, Whenever I get asked this question or something similar, like how do you balance your time for all of these, or how do you have time to get all of these done, and other questions, I always respond that when you love doing something, when it is your passion, you always have time for it amongst your other day-to-day aspects in life. When you love the things you are doing, it becomes a routine for you. not a chore, not a drag, but it gets integrated into your everyday system as if it were, an effortless thing to do. And you won't even realize that you're tired of it or that you've done so much, but instead you feel satisfied, you feel accomplished, happy, and fulfilled. No frustration over integrating curricular and co-curricular or extracurricular activities. However, we acknowledge as well, I acknowledge personally that the experience and the journey of being a youth advocate and leader is hard. It's not a walk in the park. You don't always, things do not always go your way. But I always also advise my mentees to have a calendar or a planning book or even a list of things, so that you get your activities mapped out and spaced properly so that there is no chance for overlap or getting overwhelmed in the long run. And this technique also protects you from burnout since you can plot your own rest days for self-care, which is very important now.
Mhm, mhm. It seems like you really know your priorities in the way you integrate life and work, right? And speaking of time, can you name a timely and relevant issue or issues that the youth are currently facing today? And given that issue, how do you think we can solve that problem?
Wow, that's a really great question, Nas.
Mhm,
Culturally, I believe that the youth in the Philippines have been extremely underestimated. And
mhm,
from this, we feel unheard, undervalued, and underrepresented. And from this culture, coupled with a lack of quality education, empowerment, and support opportunities, this puts the Filipino youth in a very dangerous and vulnerable place. The opportunities for participation and empowerment also come from and also are distributed in a very centralized manner. And this causes much youth led organizations and networks to seek funding and support from external sources, for example, from other NGOs or from other private entities or foundations. And the youth, I believe, are a vulnerable population to wrong and misleading information, as what I've mentioned a while ago. And it would affect their ability to make personal, informed, and empowering choices on their health and safety. It is thus important to focus on this aspect as well. Much youth also suffer from poor housing conditions, few decent employment opportunities. They experience great gender inequality and discrimination. They suffer from abuse, sadly, that is amplified now. And they have little or no access to safe environments, clean water and air, and also they experience food insecurity. And these are all worsened tenfold during the pandemic, if not amplified, resurfaced because of the pandemic situation.
mhm. Right. Right. And one striking statement that you've mentioned, Lorenzo, is the access to information, right? And to our listeners, to the UPOU community, I'd like to emphasize that Sir Lorenzo Sablay is the one who actually approached me to advocate for this talk wherein we will be able to delve into the youth empowerment and action campaigns and initiatives that they are currently dealing with. And I was able to utilize the social media or the new media as a platform. For you, Lorenzo, do you think there is a really a problem that we need to address the way the youth of today access to this kind of platforms, especially that we are now everything happens online, right? The digitization of or we should say the internet of things is quite prevalent right now. uh, as a youth advocate, what do you think is the role of the social media or the new media platforms, emerging technological informations? Does it really help your advocacies or campaign? Can you just expound what the social media really
Mhm.
plays into advocating youth empowerment and at the same time the sustainable development goals?
Yes, actually, social media is a double-edged sword. It can
Mhm.
bring out the best in us, connect us easily, miles apart. It can amplify our advocacy. No questions asked on that. But it also can bring out the worst in us. It can threaten the security of a person, in terms of like data privacy or protection
Yes.
and security. But in terms of the way an organization works and operates, it depends largely on their social media engagement and um, information access to social media is very easy because everyone, almost everyone, if not everyone, has Facebook, has Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And that's the thing that makes information access there very, very vulnerable to distortion, to being changed in a way that would benefit one person and endanger another. Um, However, with social media use comes social media responsibility. This is what um, we would like to emphasize is that social media responsibility is um, from the user's end. Uh, a platform can do so much to protect us from threats in our security and in information. They can implement some frameworks or some features for that, but still at the end of the day, it will depend on the user. If the user has good fact checking behavior, has good discernment as well, and of course, if they have a good intention to share or not, if they think this is fake news. Um, you know, in social media as well, it's important to educate the user of its benefits and harms, as with any other service. We have to be very, very transparent about that. And as far as our organizational work goes in SDGs and advocating, we try and we always practice when posting, we cite our sources so that our audience can check and fact check, double check if they think that it's credible or not. But of course, we get from credible sources. Yeah.
Right, right. Social media responsibility, right?
Yes.
That's very striking because social media can either make or break you. The way we
Yes.
access to this kind of information, especially now that we are almost in the election season, right? We should be critical consumer, and that striking statement will actually left us how responsible are we in using this kind of new media platform, right? So May 2022 election is approaching. Though we're not going to be so much be political in here, but according to Comelec, young Filipino voters may make a difference in next year's national elections, as we are now comprised 52. That's 52% of the total registered voters. For you, Lorenzo, what do you think is the role of the youth and what makes really a good leader?
For me, in relation to this year's elections, we have to understand that the youth are society's reservoir for much needed and meaningful change. This is because as empowered youth, we have immense, very, very immense potential to inspire other youth and also the elder population to open their eyes to the realities of the world around us and to start meaningful change through our personal actions and actions that can inspire and affect others. And especially when given the right and encouraging environment, when given the right resources and opportunities, us youth can be catalysts and enablers for a progressive and sustainably developed society as future leaders, educators, professionals for nation building. And having the right and encouraging environment, good resources and opportunities for youth and all groups in society starts with good governance. Good governance has its foundation in a clean and informed electoral process, not being blinded by fake news, popularity campaigns, but by a good, timely, needs based platform. Knowledge and awareness, and even behavior in choosing our next leaders in an informed way has much dependence on how we educate succeeding generations of youth. And as what I've said, our current actions definitely they have a strong impact on the state of the future generations. This is the concept and core of sustainable development. What we do today will greatly influence the world of tomorrow. And this is what everybody, regardless of age, has to realize. It's not just about me or you anymore, it's about all of us. All together in our quest for a sustainably developed world. And in educating, advocating, and encouraging actions toward clean elections, informed voting, and good governance, we have to first involve the youth and engage them meaningfully. And I strongly believe that the youth can contribute to creating meaningful change and imparting a positive impact in nation building and good governance through advocacy, through policy and collaborative action, through knowledge exchange and capacity building for our common purpose. We have to first realize also and value our worth as youth leaders with a strong and impactful voice in our communities and networks. And I think that's what makes a good leader. If if that leader knows what clearly what his or her purpose is, and though the youth are very, very underestimated these days, I always believe that it is our duty as empowered youth leaders to also empower the youth around us, and to change that perception that we are not just vulnerable, but we have to place the youth at a higher pedestal to foster good governance. Because of what we've mentioned a while ago, I think we are um, occupying 52% of the total voters. Am I right?
Yes, yes. Mhm,
Yes. So, that's a large number, and together we are strong in numbers.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Wow, we need. It seems like that we need more Lorenzo Sablay in the future, and I think in that way, we can transform the youth of today. Just to be like you and to other models who actually advocate for the youth and empowerment. But personally asking, as a youth advocate, what is your dream for the Philippines?
That is a very heartfelt question. And my dream for the Philippines, honestly, is that for everyone, everywhere, most children and youth, um, for them to experience no insecurities and difficulties, for them to have um, free access to opportunities, resources, and services that are essential for their growth and development, and that we all are allowed to live our lives to the fullest without fear and discrimination. I dream for a Philippines where nobody is left behind, that everyone everywhere will have uh, equal opportunity for growth, development, and success. No matter where we come from or who we are, we can emerge as the best versions of ourselves, since growth, development, and success are for everyone everywhere. It's not just for a select group of people, it's for everyone everywhere. I dream for a better life and a brighter tomorrow for every Filipino and Filipina. And a big part of it includes their health and well-being. Speaking from a personal aspect, a part of this vision, for growth, development, and success relies on having constant, needs-based, targeted, and efficient access to knowledge, resources, and services for their sexual and reproductive health, mental health, nutrition, hygiene and sanitation, injury prevention, and other important aspects of primary preventive health care. Good health and well-being is a fundamental right of every person. Unfortunately, access to health in the Philippines is very unequal and inadequate, with gaps increasingly widened by our fragmented healthcare delivery system and also poor governance in multiple levels. Um, Not everyone has sufficient access to even the most basic healthcare services, most especially to vital health education and information. Um, Efficient access to primary healthcare is one of my dream. Universal health coverage. Um, it is vital to our personal and professional growth and success, and in turn, it is tantamount to the development of our communities and the entire nation. Because a healthy nation is a progressive nation. Unfortunately, good health and well-being and the dream to live a life that is holistically developed is unfortunately still a privilege to those who can afford it, but a dream to those who cannot. And this reality threatens the bright future, especially of our youth, the Filipino youth. This is the reality we want to change. And this is my dream for the Philippines.
Mhm. And that is the reality that you actually saw firsthand, being part of the healthcare industry. And while we are still combating this pandemic, and there are still developing efforts that both public and private sector are currently implementing, it really means a lot to youth like me that people like Lorenzo Sablay is actually doing small steps, right? That would eventually lead to bigger step, and how we can personify the power of the youth and the initiatives that we're actually working with. And with that, Lorenzo, can you invite us with the UNDP Movers program is currently implementing, or do you have any programs, initiatives that we could support, or endeavors that you are really trying to look forward to? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Nas. As Nas has mentioned a while ago, I'm part of the Movers program as an envoy, and we are a movement of volunteers to develop SDG awareness, entrepreneurial mindsets, and 21st century skills by conducting localized trainings at the grassroots level. And we use training of trainer approach in working with community partners to target various groups in leaving no youth behind. So since I started, I have delivered over 30 trainings to about more than 1,400 participants worldwide, and you can have the opportunity to do so by becoming part of the Movers program and by attending our workshops. You can follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn and be part of our Facebook community of movers and await for any opportunities for workshops, which I'm sure that we have a lot coming this coming 2022. So I'm inviting you all in advance in our new year for workshops to come and see you there. I'm also part of an organization called More Viral Than the Virus Philippines and More Viral Than the Virus Global, and we are a global COVID-19 youth movement that focuses on combating misinformation and the infodemic on COVID-19 and other important health aspects. And you can support our campaigns in Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well to share correct information from the WHO and DOH so that we can correct misinformation on health matters and concepts, and we can empower youth and protect them as well from misinformation. Um, Lastly, I'm part of the official youth constituency of the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change called YOGO. We are an open group. Anyone from the youth can join us. Um, and as mentioned, we are the official youth constituency. You can join us by supporting our campaigns and events, joining the constituency, and contributing your experience and time as volunteers, as well as joining our working groups. I'm part of the Ocean's Voice Working Group, and we advocate for healthy ocean, protecting our ocean and marine and aquatic biodiversity. I'm also part of the Loss and Damage Working Group, where we advocate for the prevention and mitigation as well as adaptation for the loss and damage effects of climate change. So you can visit our Instagram in Yongo, which I will share with Nas so that everyone can have access to that.
Right, right. And I think while this being
Yeah, I
aired,
think that yeah.
we can actually see the information campaign posted on our screen, since I'll be coordinating with Lorenzo later on. And one last thing before we end, what is your message to the people who are aspiring youth advocates or leaders like Lorenzo Sablay?
Thank you so much for that question. As I think my message would be in creating the world that we want and the bright future that we deserve. It has to start from something, from somewhere, somehow. And the best message and advice I can provide everyone is to open your eyes, your ears, your minds, and to open your heart. Open your eyes and ears to what really happens around you. Don't be blinded um, by the reality. See and listen to the voices of the community members, to their plights, their suggestions or recommendations, and do not be afraid to start from the grassroots level and work your way upwards. Second is to open your minds to the reality and the truth. And no matter how sad it may be, but also open your minds to new perspectives, to innovations and solutions, and to the positive mindset that you can still do something about the problems you encountered. Last is to open your hearts and have empathy to who you want to serve. Starting your own community initiative and being a leader, an advocate, or a volunteer will have its ups and downs. But you have to always think about the essence of your service. Start initiatives that are for everyone and are by everyone, like just like the Movers program, with the goal of leaving no one behind. Open your hearts and be brave. Be brave, especially in these trying times, to start something meaningful. Be brave to experience mistakes or failures along the way and turn them into actual learning experiences. Be brave to turn your vision into concrete action because sometimes all that you need is a little fearless push to get meaningful change started.
All right, listen to the voice of your community. Open your mind to reality. Open your hearts and be brave. Wow, it's just an eye opener. And on behalf of our audience and listeners, I thank you from the bottom of our heart. And it's truly an honor for taking your time from your busy schedule to be our guest speaker for the Sustainable PH Radio. And your presence and wise words actually help not just me, but to our listeners to magnify our cost in the best possible way. It seems like that we're invigorating all our spirits and making each of us feel more relaxed and at the same time learn from the advocacy that Lorenzo, or should I say, Doctor, future Dr. Lorenzo Sablay is doing for the sake of a better people and better Philippines. With that, we wish you all the best and we look forward to connecting with you, sir, and at the same time support the initiatives that the United Nations Development Program or Movers Program is doing. Thank you so much, Lorenzo Sablay, and we look forward to working with you soon.
Thank you so much, Nas, and to UP Open University and Sustainable PH Radio. Have a safe holidays and Happy New Year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.